So this is the title of my talk. Your apes may be gone, but the hackers made $9 billion and they're still here. And really it started because there was this podcast, and I'm not going to name the podcast in particular. I've obfuscated that a little bit. But they do talk about crypto a lot. And in one episode, I think I got very angry, and I ended up walking 10 blocks in the wrong direction in New York. And angry enough that I submitted a talk. So really just like, hey, what does the crypto landscape look like? Like, how are people doing it? What is traceable, what is not? So that's what this will be about. So to cover it, the scale of crypto crime is really big. That's what she said. So crypto crime is, at 9 billion compared to like even ransomware and business email compromise. So it is like there's a lot of money in it. A lot of like actors are playing in it. It's interesting to see. So this is me. I'm Andrew. All the things that are bolded up places that I worked that did crypto. I still do it. Usually I explain to people that I'm basically like a train autist who loves trains, except I love security. So I'm like a security train autist. And there's Malibu because everyone is still going on about this Malibu thing that's happening. Okay, so to start it, we'll do like a little crypto 101 just to give you like the basics so that we can explain the rest of it. And obviously I only have 25 minutes-ish, so I can't explain everything, all the different attacks. So we're just going to cover them at a pretty high level. Okay, so the first part is blockchains. So it's got Z because there's lots of them. And basically it's just one big computer. That's how you should think about it. A lot of people have, a lot of people run something, then they all say like, well, I ran this on my computer, I got this output, and we all agree, 51% of us agree, then we put it on the blockchain, right? Which is just basically an audit log that is immutable, it's append only, and it's timestamped. It has to run in a sequence. So there are great receipts for like every crime ever, right? You can go back at any time and look at any of the crimes that have happened on chain, for the most part. There are some nuance there, but I'm not going to get into it. And there are a number of these, right? So this is like, if you think like there's Ethereum, there's Bitcoin, there's Solana, there's a whole bunch of different ones, and they have some different properties, but as a whole, you can think of them as computers. So wallets, people always say wallets. You should just think of wallets as a public and private key pair, right? It says that I've got a private key, I can sign something like, oh, I love Malibu, and then someone who's on the other side can look at my public key and say, I know that Andrew definitely sent that. They're usually browser extensions, so you have something in your browser that stores these keys, and you'll go to a website and you'll click a button, and your browser extension will pop up and say like, hey, let's do the thing. And that's how people interact with them as a whole. And then the only other thing is they come in two main flavors, which is like single, I guess like the default wallet where it's just yours, and multi-sig where a lot of people have to agree on the same, they want to do the same thing. They want to sign the same message before it'll send it out. So, a way that they can have some extra security. Once you have one of these messages that you've signed with your wallet, it goes out to this big computer, and that's a transaction. So I say like, hey, I want you to run this little piece of code for me, and I have to pay what's called gas for this, and that's basically like compute. So the same way that you pay for compute in all cloud services, you have to pay for it on-chain as well. And then the last one is smart contracts, which are just like a collection of these different codes that the blockchain can do, and they are bundled together so that you can do something fun like, I don't know, get an NFT or drain someone. Tokens come in two flavors, but I've put three here just to differentiate them. So fungible, that basically means that they're interchangeable all the time. You can think of these like currencies. So if everyone in the room had $100 notes of different amounts, but we all only had $100 notes, we could easily change them. We could transfer them between each other, and the value would still stay the same. We don't actually lose anything. They're non-fungible. So these are NFTs, and they are unique. Each one is unique. No two that are alike. And those are the things that skyrocketed a couple of years ago and now are worthless. There are some good ones, but those aren't them. And then the last thing is stable coins. So because you have all these currencies, there's a lot of like fluctuation in value. So if you think like even fiat currencies, if you look at like the South African rand compared to the US dollar, like it will change. It will be like worth 10 rand for $1, and then a year later it will be like 15 rand for $1. And on chain that happens very quickly. So there's a lot of fluctuation, and stable coins are the way that you can retain value on chain. So they basically say like, anytime you have one of these fungible tokens, it is backed by a US dollar and is always worth $1 US. It never changes. And the most common ones that we see are USDT and USDC, but there are thousands of them. Backends, no one has them. So it is a bit different to think about when you look at it from security, but because everything is in the browser, we generate a lot of, we generate the message that you're going to sign that says like, I want to buy this thing or I want to do something on chain in the application, in the browser, and it interacts with the wallet, which is a browser extension. So a lot of these just don't have backends. I've literally cannot SSH into a server for a lot of the products. So now we'll talk a little bit about the attack patterns, and I'll go through some examples, and then we'll look at like, how we can find them and stuff. So first, they're definitely coming for your apps, right? Everyone wants a little piece of your crypto, and they'll start off like this one example is the biggest crypto heist that has happened so far, and that's $1.5 billion from Bybit. And that is kind of like a regular attack. Like you could have seen this anywhere. It's not really crypto specific. Basically, a developer's machine got infected through a generic drive-by, impostilla, whatever. Someone looked at the machine. They found AWS credentials for production S3 bucket that had JavaScript. And remember, we only have front ends, so that is the whole application. The attackers then looked at it, saw that it was one of these multi-sig applications, so lots of people have to agree to like move something. And they looked at all the wallets that interact with it and found that Bybit's ones were there, which were, have $1 billion in them, which is insane anyway. So then what they did was they modified the JavaScript so that only when Bybit used the application would it change. So it'll show them like, hey, you want to transfer $10, and instead the thing that they sign is, hey, I want full control of the wallet, and you're going to give it away. And they all looked at it, they did this, and then they were drained and they lost all their money. What I did think was interesting here was that right after they had done the draining, they replaced the JavaScript back with the original one. And one of the few reasons that we know about it is because someone put it on Wayback Machine. So if that was you, I would appreciate you telling me how you knew that was coming. If they can't get your apps, they'll just get the code. Crypto is a ton of supply chain risk. There is loads of like typo squatting all across like NPM, PyPy. You would have seen the one from a couple of days ago. Basically, they fish a developer. They upload a new version of the package. The one that was most recent was a little more interesting. So it would look on the developer's computer to see if they have other packages and infect those, and effectively like creating a worm. But we see this a lot of the time. And for all those companies that are like really hyping this, none of them have managed to stop it ahead of time. Every time it's like someone has spotted this and then they've come up with a plan. If they can't get to the code, so they can't get the apps or the code, they'll get to developers. So this is something that happened maybe like 6 years ago or so, a while ago. But effectively what they did was they said like, okay, I'll do a bunch of OSINT on this company. I'll find out all the people who work there. I find a developer, in this case a security engineer. They find their name and their alias. They look up dynamic DNS to see like, okay, they have a dynamic DNS, it points to their house. At their house, they have Plex. So they go and visit this. They see like, oh, it's some version of Plex. They leave. They come back a week later, which feels like a short time, but Plex is probably trash. And they came back with an RCE. So they were like, hey, we have a way to like modify some metadata and it will execute. When they had access to that box, they looked at it, saw it was like being used as a downloader for whatever they were downloading. They infected every file that came down, and they waited for the person to obviously like run one of those files on their Windows box, and they used a Chrome proxy to go through that Windows box when the person wasn't there, to add an SSH key to their GitHub account, and then with that, they pulled all the private repos and things like that. So they're putting in a lot of work and doing pretty good at it. They also have all the other usual things, so the loads of like VS Code extensions. When Squarespace took over from Google Hosting, there was like a bug where any previous admin account could access the new Squarespace account, and they just lost their mind registering so many of these. They bribe people, insiders, things like that. And then drainer kits. So like in the terms of like economy, there's basically like a bunch of criminals who are doing drainers as a service. And actually I have some videos here because they have done this really well. Like it is super easy to set up a drainer these days. There's one that's like Telegram. This is making like, I think, a clone of Coinbase or something. But they'll let you set it up, and you don't need to know anything about crypto. You don't need to know anything about hosting. They'll teach you how to do Cloudflare's under attack so that people can't scan their site. They really put in a lot of effort, and I wish that most of my SaaS apps were as good as this. They're also very responsive, and they've gamified it really well. So they basically take a cut of any time that you drain someone. So like you take $50, they get 5 cents. And they've gamified it in a way that the drainer that you get will only be as good as like your level. So if you take $500, you can get the very first one. If you've done 50K, you can get a much better one that like does cross-chain and all kinds of things. If they can't get to your developers, then they'll get to your executives. So this was the Ledger co-founder, which is a hardware wallet, but him and his wife were captured in France. They were kidnapped in France, and the attackers cut off one of his fingers. It was very traumatizing for everyone. But I did love that he came back on Twitter when they rescued him and put at his bio was Kidnapping Championship 2025 and fingers 9 of 10. So good effort on them. Then in terms of attackers, we have the whole spectrum. So we have like a lot of like kids doing SIM swaps. And you'll see here, like they have thought about it a little bit. So now in the US, you'll get a message from your provider to say like, hey, do you really want to port your number? Reply no if you don't want to. And then what they'll do is they'll figure out the email address that goes to text for your number, and they'll sign you up for like thousands of like services and blogs and whatever they can find, so that your phone is basically unusable during that time, and you can't reply to it. Professional, we have the like organized drainer gangs, and for a brief moment on the internet, we had like real peace because we found a new way to identify them, and there were like 2 main groups, and the other group refused to believe that we had done this, and instead thought that their competition was reporting them, so they started reporting the competition. So we had 2 groups just reporting themselves for a while till they figured it out, and then they figured out not to report either. And then we have APT level, so like Bybit, the Plex sophistication, we see them cracking the LastPass passwords to get into the crypto. So stealing the money is pretty easy. I was doing the time. Great. So stealing money is pretty easy, but spending it is really hard. It's hard to get crypto out. As much as everyone says, like it's really easy, it just isn't anymore. So if you're looking through the way that you like launder it, you basically first do like the phishing or draining or whatever, and you get the funds. Then you've got to swap into mainstream assets, right? So if you steal some random shitcoin and you want to convert it, and you want to get value out of it, you can't really like just go to any counter or any exchange and say like, I want to use this, because they won't support it. And then also if you have a lot of currency, it's very difficult because the market will move with you. So if you try and move like $1 billion, the token that you have will be less valuable by the time you get to like 800 million, because people are like, well, everyone is selling this, so we're going to sell it too. Then they do cross-chain swaps. So when you have lots of blockchains, you can say like, okay, well, I'm going to give someone money over here on one blockchain, and I'm going to get it on another one. And you can think of that like international remittance. So I go to my friend in the US, and I give them $50. They phone their friend somewhere else. They phone their friend in Mexico. I go to Mexico, and that friend gives me the $50. There's no like actual transaction between them, but because I give the $50 here, I get it on that side because that's their service. Then they use mixers. So mixers are basically, if we all had our $100 again, and we have many of them, we'll get a huge pit, and we'll just put all our $100 into this pit, and we'll get a little IOU that says like, okay, you put in 5 notes, you can take 5 out. And then you can take out any 5 that you want, so you've kind of like laundered it with other people's money. But of course, if there are not a lot of legitimate people participating in the mixer, then it's just criminals trading their own money, which doesn't help them a lot. Okay, and then once they have that, they use OTC, so they'll go over the counter to trade crypto into cash, or they'll go to non-KYC exchanges. And non-KYC exchanges are pretty hard to find, and it looks a lot like old carding. So previously, like you'll have the mules, and you'll lose a lot of money once you've got the cards, because the mules have to get all the money, and you lose like 40%. And you're starting to see that on non-KYC exchanges because they know the risks. So it is a lot more difficult. The mixers and the cross-chain swaps, Tornado Cash, you would have heard about, is probably the most famous mixer. And then ThorChain is probably the thing that they do a lot. It also was used for 85% of the Bybit. So 85% of that 1.5 billion went through there. And obviously, they take a small cut. They haven't given that back yet, but we'll find out if they do. So people use it because it's permissionless. There's obviously like no KYC. There's a lot of liquidity on it. And the people who provide the liquidity. So I say, like, I'm going to give you my money as though I was the bank to do foreign exchange. I will give you one side of this. Then I will get a small cut from everyone for providing that liquidity. So pretty good for everyone, and a common first hop for large attacks. OK, so if we're trying to find these, you'll see that it's kind of the same skills that you have anyway for all security. So the first thing is like, oh, we'll look at like fingerprints. We'll look at hashes, blobs, same request that they make. So you can see this one here is secureproxy.php. PHP is back. And that's for like Inferno v8. And this I did yesterday. Well, I took the screenshot yesterday. But you can see there's one from like 1 minute, 17, and 26. Like these are very rapid. You can go do this yourself now, and you'll see them all coming up. Then we have transaction graph analysis. So you'll say like, oh, whenever these types of people steal the money, they always use this service, and then use this service, and then use this service because they've learned this pattern, and everyone has like a playbook. So you can start like saying like, okay, these look like the same people. And then address reuse tracking. We basically don't catch any of these people. So they've started being real lazy, and they will use the same wallets that they previously did crime with. So somewhere along the line, you'll be like, oh, they're reusing a wallet, so now I can tie it to them. Then if we look at the traceability, like what we really can see, so cross-chain is obviously invisible because there is no actual like connection. There's nothing that you can see. But when you're looking at it, like you know that someone just put $500,000 over here, and someone on this chain just got $500,000 over there. It's pretty likely that it's going to be the same. So even when people say like it's invisible, like with timing and analysis, you can easily get it, especially if they are being lazy, which they currently still are. Like they shouldn't be using the same amounts. They should be using different chains, but they're not. So each hop is kind of like a checkpoint, and you can see it. And obviously, like all the logs are public, right? You can see everything that happened, and they're permanent. But the problem is that they do this very, very quickly. So they'll have like scripts that automate the movement and do everything else. And the threat intel teams really struggle to keep pace with it. So as soon as you get like, especially like there's OFAC sanctions and a whole bunch of lists that are like, hey, you can't interact with these wallets, it will be the first wallet, but they've already sent the funds somewhere else. And now I need to wait for them to get the next one, and you'll be doing that the whole time. There's also, it's mostly like manual analysis, so people individually doing this, and there are only a few people who kind of like do these kinds of investigations, which I don't really understand why. But we do have some things. So we have a whole bunch of tools that are like revoke.cache, so you can like say, I don't want to be able to send anything, chain abuse. Wallet Guard will check if you're like going to send something malicious. It'll say like, hey, don't sign this. That's no good. You're going to give away all your rights. We have scanners, so like Etherscan and Tenderly, you can see the transactions, and they will provide like good output and everything. Then we have communities. So SentinelOne is a crypto, I guess a non-profit crypto incident response. So because there's so much crime, it's so difficult to get people to help out. We have like a Telegram bot that people can just say like, hey, I got drained, or our protocol got hacked, or our application is no longer responding. And there's like a whole bunch of people who do like incident response, and we'll just like randomly pick up tickets and try to help them. But there are a lot of gaps. So we have no real like SIM kind of equivalents to do like big data analysis, especially across like multiple chains. Chain analytics as a whole is still pretty new and very fragmented. Like they won't support every chain. They'll only support different types of transactions. So it's a little bit difficult to follow with those. Endpoint coverage is almost non-existent. Like no one is really like scanning normal endpoints for crypto things. So it's very difficult to get good coverage for it. And then we did, well, I didn't, but someone in SentinelOne did try and update Styx and Taxi to have more actual crypto things, and it was a nightmare. So we're not going to do that, which means that we don't really have like good support to use like default tooling that we have. So I would say that overall, crypto security is like the most fun you can have. No one should not be in crypto security if they like security. One, I didn't put it on here, but there's a lot of drama, and drama is just thrilling as long as you're not in it. Then the attackers are good. Like, we have everything from like skids to APT groups. They're doing novel attacks. It's interesting work. They'll like regularly pivot. So of the drainer groups, we initially started tracking that they were making. We initially could see the code that was malicious inside the applications. Then they started waiting for you to connect a wallet and make sure the wallet had funds. Then we started tracking the AJAX requests that they made. And then they switched to using WebRTC. And then they used a whole bunch of other protocols. So they like pivot very quickly. Security buy-in is huge. Everyone has either been wrecked or knows someone who's been wrecked. So it's really easy to be like, oh, we should do security. Everyone is like, yeah, we love security. And then there's a lot of greenfield stuff. So in crypto security, you can get away from that corpo slop security. You can try something new and interesting. There's a lot of like stagnation in traditional security, but you can approach it with something that's like more realistic for like, I guess, modern computing. So an example, like one of the crypto banks re-images their machines every single day. So every developer has a machine that re-images itself, and they do remote development. The company provides them with like the best internet and anything else that they need. And it's great. They basically don't have endpoints. They don't need to worry about it. There's almost no time spent on them. No files are on them. It's great. So you have a lot of chance to do that. So I will encourage everyone to come join crypto security. Okay, thank you.
All right, we have any questions? That was a great talk. In my experience, the KYC at the exchanges is absolute crap. Do you see them adopting anything like a suspicious activity reporting mechanism? You know, because you see an account get set up and then 200 million laundered in 48 hours and kind of no controls on that. So how do you see that space evolving at the exchange level?
I think that there's a lot of like more regulatory pressure that's been put on now, especially as like the stable coins are becoming more mainstream. They are forcing you to go through better KYC, where previously you could like send an image of a driver's license and they were like all good. Now, I mean, I don't know how well that's going to work, and like even the providers that do this, they can all just take fake information. Very few of them do a good job, and I suspect the same is in everywhere. Like, I don't think that that is crypto specific. I suspect that banks don't do a good job either.
But a bank, if I try to move that much money, is going to flag it.
Oh yeah.
And the exchanges are not. It's like free flow.
It depends on the exchange, but a lot of them will have like a cool down period, especially the US exchanges. They're a lot more difficult, so we don't see them used as much. But generally, people are like, I mean, we see most of it laundered on like non-exchange, not through exchanges, because they do have those requirements, and they can just switch to USDT and then do an OTC in China. So it's really well supported there.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, that'll do it.
Thanks.